We'll call this Thursday meeting, or Thursday, October 20 meeting of the Public Safety Committee to order. We'll start with roll call.
Mr. Hess?
Present.
Mr. Byrne? Mr. Legess?
Present.
Mr. Stauffenberg?
Present.
Mr. Enns?
Present.
Mr. Tholen? Mr. McConnell?
Present.
Ms. Polk?
Present.
Mr. Snipes? Mr. Seroy?
Present.
Mr. Reed? Ms. Peters? Mr. Bassard? We have a quorum.
Okay, I've not received any requests for public comment. Is there any public comment at this time? Any public comment? Approval of the minutes. Diane's close with the 21st. She's almost completed April, so if we get somebody hired to take her position at the Treasurer's Department, we will, Finance Department, pardon me, Finance Department, we will be catching up on the minutes. Okay, coroner. In your package you have a copy of the coroner's monthly report and you have a copy of the monthly receipts of money. I will take a motion to approve. Ms. Peters, second by Mr. Stauffenberg. Comments on your report, Bob?
Other than thank you. Other than the fact that this the month of September and in October has been one of the worst months around that we've had. We're doing 4 autopsies this morning. It's been a real, like I say, last month between the sheriff's office, I know, and our office has been really bad as far as cases wise. Right now we're in September wise, we're at the numbers are self-explanable. We're up a lot in the fatalities wise, accidents wise, overdoses. We got possibly 2 this morning. We found needles in their arms. Hang on one second here. We're roughly right now, excuse me for 1 second, I got mixed up. We're roughly right now about 16 overdoses, but some of the overdoses are not showing on the death certificates because there's other causes, for instance, an automobile accident or any type of an injury would show the injury caused the death, not the drugs. So if you put all that together, we looked at that statistic. We have somewhere between 25 and 30 overdoses this year, which is a lot, including the one that we haven't gotten on our statistics yet. We've had another sighting of the fentanyl coming to our area. Other than that, we're right now at what hurts us, and I keep talking about this, just those 4 homicides themselves have cost us almost $8,200. $8,200. That stuff that we don't have, that's not budgeted in for. And I think all of you have all come to me to say that understandable, we don't know how many autopsies you're going to have every year. But today we're going to, like I said, we're going to have a possibility of 4 autopsies this morning, 2 yesterday. It's been constantly all week long that we're having autopsies on different cases. So just going back to on the one weekend there, between Eric and I both and the staff, we've caught 38 hours of time that we spent over a weekend, Saturday and Sunday. To Eric and I working, it's priceless, but to the other people, there was overtime in that, and that was on the homicides. When you have a triple homicide, it's extremely difficult to work in long hours. Going back to the heroin, I don't know if I didn't get a chance. Of course, the minutes weren't done there. If I brought this up or not on the Narcan program, I did find money for the Narcan program. We're going to continue to go with it. We've already had one successful save. The chief from St. Anne was able to bring a person back with Narcan, which was great. But because of Narcan tripled their cost, we were unable to continue to supply that. So I found somebody that gave us some money, and then we're looking into other sources of grants, which we're right on the tail end of them, to bring this program back between Chief Swinford and myself. We've been working hard at this, and I don't want this program to go away, because we've already had one successful, and of course the squads are having successful too. But you can see what our numbers are. Some of those overdoses are Narcan. We only carry 2 units, 0.4 milligrams in our squads. It might take up to 8 to be able to produce it when they have the fentanyl in them. So it's a tough drug to react, but we're working on that. And that's about all I can say on that aspect. But it's been a very busy. Statistics are going up pretty high in my department, and also spend a lot of money. So.
Ms. Peters, question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was wondering, do we know where the heroin and fentanyl, are they both coming out of Mexico, or are they being cooked up in the United States? Do you know where they're coming from?
Oh, I wish I did. No, it really, all the reading that you do, it comes from China into Mexico, and then comes through our highways to Chicago, to all different areas. The problem is some of it's getting mailed directly to individuals, and that's the stuff that's a little bit more hotter, called car fentanyl. There's 3 or 4 fentanyls are out there. Car fentanyl is just as powerful as analgesic for an elephant. That's the type of a pill it is. This is a real small, tiny little pill like a nitro. But I wish we could, and that's, you know, all the police department. I know the sheriff's department and the KMAG department in this county here are working hand to hand, doing the best of their ability.
Right, and the paper's been helping getting the information out too. So
paper and the press, the radio, and all that.
So kudos to them. Then what's the average age? You know, the people who overdosed. You know, are they more teens, or are you still seeing?
Well, the average age
was 40?
42. It's dropped down to about 38 right now. Okay. We're seeing more in that particular age. It's just unbelievable to see this. That death shouldn't happen. You know,
right. When you go into the high schools and you talk to the people about it, are you talking to the kids that maybe watch their parents? What signs that they would look for that maybe their parents are abusing, you know, first the painkillers and then switching over to the heroin? Because, you know, you were saying that was one of the big things. But maybe if we wake up our kids and they know what to look for.
I just got through talking to Geneva Walters about coming into the high school of Kankakee, which I haven't been into. We'll be into Mantino Moments. We've been to St. Anne and gone through the St. Anne High School. We're doing everything impossible. With these long hours that we've been producing there, it's been difficult to do. We're a little behind in that right now, but we're doing the best of our ability.
Mr. Regis had a question, and Mr. Searace.
Yeah, this is probably a difficult question to answer, but when Narcan's used and these people are brought back, are they given anything to find help somewhere? I know addiction, you know, if somebody doesn't want to help themselves, you can't help them, but are they given anything to show where to go for treatment or anything like that? Or do we have a follow-up to see if anybody that, I know that's not your job, but if there's a follow-up somewhere where if they are brought back, do we follow to see if they do get any help, or, you know, I mean, is it just going to be an ongoing problem?
I can answer that, yes, there is. If a police officer does administer Narcan out in the field and brings that person back, the ambulance has to be called, and the ambulance is most likely going to take them in or sign a refusal, but also they have information to give them to where to go, and that's distributed. In every class that we talk about, because Riverside's usually next to me, we talk about that too, okay. Exact program. But the problem is, they go in there and get it, and like I said, they come back out.
Mr. Searace.
Thank you, sir. Bob, You said the price of the Narcan has went up drastically. What was it and what is it now, the price, and what pharmaceutical company produces that?
Well, that is a kind of a pharmacy. Where we got ours was from Riverside at their particular price. It jumped up to, I can't remember. Al, do you remember the exact, I think $15. It's tripled on that aspect.
Like the EpiPen.
Yeah.
The problem we're having is now all police departments, fire departments, and rescue people, corrections has it already. This is something we're already ahead of the ballgame, but that's a new mandated to, and now they have refresher classes to go to on the Narcan. So the price hurt us because we were kind of giving that away to the sheriff's department started the first program, and then basically we're doing our best I can. But now if I get this particular money, this will help us to get through at least a couple of years. And we have an idea. I'm having several people working on grants for me. We missed a grant on that President Obama just released, 1.8 million on that, and that was sucked up real quick. So, but we know how to get it next year. So I'm constantly working on that because I'm not going to let this program go. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on Mr. Snipes?
Thank you.
Morning.
Good morning. How you doing there? Namesake. I'm wondering if when you do these workshops, similar to talking to the individuals or whatever, in order to save time, if you do the one like at the high school, if someone can videotape that and then it can be placed on the access channel, which is channel 4, then they can say, we can run because it's ran for free. So as a result, if you put it on and it's definitely something the public needs to know, then they can basically run this, in the day and at night, and then as a result, the message can get out to people, and JD Journal can advertise and the radios to say, it's on the access channel at these times, and I think that way you're getting out to a broader base of individuals, and they can see them in the comforts of their own home or whatever.
Good point.
Any other questions or comments? I know the tablets already went by. We have a motion and a second for the reports. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Surplus vehicles.
Surplus vehicles, I have two vehicles that are 2004 Chevy Impala and 2006 Chevy Impala. I know what they want. They're ready to go. Constantly. Anyhow, I have those two vehicles that are well over 100 and 120,000 miles on those. Those are the ones that are going to trade in for the purchase that I'm going to purchase. Two cars at Court Street Ford. One is going to be paid directly, as we talked about before, directly from my coroner's fees, and the second one will be on a lease, and hopefully if the county gets more money, they'll take over that lease for me. But we're going to go ahead and go with that.
Mr. Enns.
My one question is, are you getting a state price from Court Street Ford?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you.
It's actually less than the state price, isn't it?
Yeah, it's less.
Never mind. Don't put that in the minute. Don't put that in the minute.
No, it's not.
Okay, I'll take a motion to declare these surplus by Mr. Legess, second by Mr. McConnell. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I know you have to run. Huh? I say I know you have to run, so yep. Thank you.
Okay.
Sheriff. I think everybody knows, but Diane talked to Ken, and he's going to, talk to Mr. McCabe, and he's going to email this report the day before our meeting, so it'll all be emailed to you guys, so you got a a copy of it. We gotta say whatever we can on paper, so. Good morning, again.
Good morning. Before we start on the report, I don't know that people realize how important, and he just left, but I don't think people realize how important this Narcan is and what Bob and Chief Swinford has done to get that in our cars so that we have the ability as first responders to get that administered. Bob Gessner has done an outstanding job in getting that at a cost that as a county we can afford, and I think he doesn't want the praise, I'm sure, but he certainly deserves it because it is something that benefits our entire community. Unfortunately, we have to have it as much as we don't want to. It's there, and as he said, from a follow-up standpoint, you can tell people all you want about the treatments available. They have to want to get it to be able to be successful in their recovery, and but Bob has done outstanding work in staying on top of this, so kudos to him, even though he just left for 4 autopsies. So our report is up on the board. Talk about a couple things. Our census, as most of you know, on October 8th we received 75 ICE detainees. Our average daily population of out-of-county inmates at that point was 208. Since October 8th, our average daily population jumped to 281, which are getting our numbers back to where we want to be. I did, just to give you an update on ICE, and I wrote these texts down. They're on my phone, but I don't want to be accused of playing games if I get my phone out. So from the director, or as we affectionately refer to him as the FOD, the Field Office Director of ICE, they use a lot of acronyms we've discovered. So 10/18, it says everything appears to be going well so far. The only thing I ask is to let me know as soon as possible as to house any more detainees at your facility. And then yesterday at 4:25, I got another text from the FOD indicating I wanted to check with you to see when you will be able to take any more detainees. We are ready to send you 125 or whatever number you can take immediately. Those are very positive things, and I think what people don't understand with ICE is that their standards are such that our correction staff has had to jump through a lot of hoops in the last couple of weeks. I was told by one of the inspectors that he doesn't know of any other jail, excuse me, he doesn't know of any other jail in the country that could have taken 75 detainees in a matter of 3 days and do it successfully like our guys did it. And that's a credit to them. It's no secret that they're short. It's no secret that a lot of them are working double shifts almost every day. And it's no secret that they're getting mandated to work. And I know that Chief Kalawenzu and Chief Schultz are working their butts off to get people in this building. The unfortunate part is because of the people that we lost, and we talked about this before, we will now have to retrain, which is going to cost money. And there is no price to put on experience for these guys. So, we'll have some new faces, and we're working on that as we speak. At the present time,
Mr. N's got a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Sheriff, can you explain, or do you even know, why all of a sudden we're getting these? Was there another facility that was shut down, or are they just actually picking up more of these people? I'd like to know a little background on why all of a sudden, you know, give me a better idea in my mind, you know, as we go along.
Sure.
How to do this, you know.
Yeah, the Chicago field office, and we had heard this for I don't know, 3 to 4 months that all their facilities were full. And the difficult part in getting ICE detainees in your building, because their standards are somewhat different than housing a local inmate, they don't utilize additional facilities very often. Of course, they knew about us. We've been pestering them for a long, long time. And they've been down here to see our facility, so they knew we were here. They just understand the difficulty of what it takes to get these guys in the building and supervise them adequately based on their standards. All they told us was that they are full everywhere across the United States. And that includes the 2 jails they use in Illinois, McHenry County and Pulaski County, and the 2 in Wisconsin, which are Kenosha County and Dodge County. And when he called me on October 5th asking for how many detainees we could take, it was because they had no room anywhere else.
Mr. McConnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sheriff, what's your maximum you can take?
From ICE, approximately 200. And that's going to depend on
Training.
housing and all that. And obviously we're not going to put people in, we're not going to take people in here we can't adequately supervise, because if we do that, and even the ICE inspectors, the people who are doing and making sure that we're meeting the standards are saying, you know, we don't want you to fail.
Right.
We're here to help you so that you succeed. And by taking so many at once wouldn't benefit you in any way. So we've done it right by taking a smaller number to start, and as we get our staff in here, we'll jump that number up.
Just the last question, what's the turnover as far as when they come in to when they're released? I know you get more all the time, but what's the turnover?
At this point, we don't know.
Don't know.
We still have the same 75 we have from October 8th.
I would think that would be due to the court system getting them.
They have, we do go up to Chicago, and we have been going up, I believe, every day.
Thank you.
And they appear before, and I don't know what the terminology is, if it's judges or whatever, adjudicators or something, because it's all civil.
Thank you.
Mr. Legess.
Mike, do you have a kind of a timeline when you'll be able to, start taking the additional?
We actually talked this morning, and we're actually talking about, instead of taking the additional right away, because they have basically said, without mincing words, if you take that many, you're going to fail. And we certainly don't want to do that.
Yeah.
We talked about possibly taking maybe 15 to 20 every week as we move forward. I think that's a good number to get us in. So yeah, I mean, we're moving on it as fast as we can, but again, we don't want to be put in a position to fail. We don't want to put people in a position to fail. And getting these guys in here and getting them trained takes some time.
Okay, I'm going to go to Mr. Stauffenberg first. Larry.
Thank you, Chairman. Mike, do we have anybody that we've laid off on employment that we can call back?
We have called back anybody who did not come back the first time, and they are either out of the area or they are gainfully employed and quite frankly don't want to take the risk.
Because they would be trained already, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're training them, and then we were laying them off and then sending them someplace else.
And so now if you ask them to come back, and then God forbid something happens, and then they just left a job that they were happy with, it was a well-paying job, and they come back here, then they get laid off again, then they're just not willing to take that chance.
Is there
too much uncertainty?
Do you have the leeway to up the ante if you call them back, so that they might take the job, because we wouldn't have to train them then? So
if you guys want to give me no layoffs, I'd be more than happy to.
I kind of doubt we'll do that, but
you asked.
Mr. Enns.
Yeah, Sheriff, I have one more question. I hate to put you on the spot, but because you may not know.
I'm used to it.
In the past, when Tim was still sheriff, He had, my memory serves me right, he'd gone to Washington several times to talk.
Yeah, I went with him both times.
Oh, you did?
Mhm.
Okay. And at that time, there was some talk that there might even be some money to finish out our expansion that is unfinished. Is that still on the table at all, or is that completely off the table?
Funny you should ask. I actually met with, there's a guy here today from ICE who works out of the DC office. And he indicated to me, because we asked, of course, that was one of the first things we've asked about, because that's obviously another 280 to 300 beds. And we talked about that, and he said that is something that you can negotiate once you renegotiate your agreement. And because we don't know at this point, from the standpoint of dollars, we have a pretty good idea, but they're piggybacking right now off our U.S. Marshal intergovernmental agreement. And so once we get settled and once we are approved and once ICE feels comfortable with us, then we can sit down with them and say, look, here's what we have available. And he said that you can negotiate some of that stuff into your contract specifically with ICE. But not, obviously that won't happen until we're settled in, but it has been talked about, and it is certainly a possibility.
I thank you that you're still pursuing that.
Oh, yeah.
That's smart thinking.
Thanks.
Mr. Snipes first.
That was my question that I was about to propose, if there was any grants or things to help get that on the way. And my next question would be, what is the likelihood of advertising to these individuals who are already they're retired officers with the state? Because I see some of them are taking little jobs at the school for security or whatever just for part-time, but I know they don't really do the full-time thing because of the retirement. But you have majors and wardens that's here that's just, you know,
Sure.
that's here. We'll probably reach out to them. They can assist because they already be, they're aware of how corrections should be run. Or
And actually what we're doing, and we haven't reached out to the retired state people for no other reason other than I don't know that we have necessarily contacts to do that. What we have done though, and one of the questions, and there's a grievance out there that I think most of you are aware of as far as part-time employees, because that is something that obviously can help us down the road when if we are able to hire some part-time people. If our population happens to change, then we can obviously cut back on the part-time people. So what we've done is, in fact, I've got, and I committed to do it actually today at 9:30, which isn't going to happen, but I have a correctional officer who is going to the law enforcement classes out of KCC to talk to their law enforcement students who are, you know, the possibility where they can maintain their education, they can keep working, and maybe work a day or two during the week to kind of learn, you know, on the job as opposed to, you know, reading it out of a book. And we're also going to Olivet to talk to Dr. Bishop and his students out there. And once we get to full staff, we're back to full staff, then that grievance of part-timers should go away, because that's the union's issue right now, is that you're trying to hire part-timers now to supplant full-timers. So once we get our staff back up, that grievance really should go away and the part-timers should be a non-issue. So.
Mr. McConnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The 75 detainees now are bringing in $6,000 a day, $80 a person, something like that.
Minus expenses.
Question is, when does that money come in, and are you able to retain that to do the training and the other stuff without jumping through hoops?
All of the revenues from the Marshals, ICE, and everywhere else goes directly to the general fund. We just hope that we are able to maintain staffing, training. I know that, and I know Mr. Enns brought up the former sheriff, and we talked about investing money back in this program. We're at a point where, you know, we're car-wise, vehicle-wise, it's a situation now where you know, we don't feel comfortable going to Chicago every day. And we're in the process of getting 2 vans, and ultimately I can foresee in the very near future the need for a couple more vans because our transports will increase for a number of reasons. But you know, those are things that we'll work through as we get them. So,
Mr. Thierry.
Want to take them on a bus?
I don't know. Have you filled out your nun form?
Could you describe? I know you said that. I know you went over this at the full board meeting. The cost we're getting is $80 per day, and what is your cost out of that 80 with full staff? I know it's probably more with your with your inadequate staff because you're paying overtime, and so with a full staff, you know, I'd like to know that number, full staff or overtime staff.
And we are actually, Mr. Lear actually sent me an email asking that as well. He said he wasn't going to be here today, so I didn't have it ready for him. But
Okay,
I do have an email from Mr. Lear wanting to know from a staffing standpoint where we're going to be at, where we're at now, where we're going to be at, and the savings of, like I said, the overtime right now is just killing us. That we'll talk about a little bit when we get to our budget. But yeah, that'll change dramatically once we get our staff up. Because remember, even if we hire a full-time correctional officer today, you're not counting his $40,000 salary in this year's budget. You're only talking about a month's salary. So you're not talking about a whole lot of money when you go month to month. So we're confident that it's going to be, and I think I told the committee that we can anticipate about $4,000 to $4,500 a day of revenue after expenses based on the numbers we have now. But that could change a little bit for the better once we get some people in here.
Now, and my second question, and I know this is for Mr. Collins, but I don't see him. He's probably working hard.
He's actually, Chief Kalawenzu and Chief Schultz are with the ICE guy from DC right now.
Can you describe a typical ICE detainee? I mean, they're not criminals, correct? In my mind, I picture somebody that was picking tomatoes last week. I don't know. I mean, is that an adequate
That might be
description?
profiling. I don't know if you can do that, Tim.
No, I just want to know.
These guys are, from my understanding, these are guys who have entered our country illegally. Okay. They are no different from a people standpoint than you or I, other than maybe the language barrier sometimes. But they are, and that's the advantage from a supervisory standpoint when you're supervising these guys. They don't seem to be violent. They comply with our rules. So they are really you can't
a golden
talk
standard.
Well, sometimes honestly, sometimes what they're getting right now is better than what they were getting when they were on the street, quite frankly.
Right. And I do mean that if you have a transportation issue, and you need volume, that's an avenue.
That is, and believe me, we've talked about that. We even mentioned Cardinal Bus specifically, so.
I don't need any plugs.
We figured we'd get the county discounts.
Right. I don't know if they pay their bill. That's what I'm worried about. I don't know.
I'm glad I got his mic up. Mr. Snipes.
Okay, that was my, you touched upon my next question as to if there are continuing talks between you and that finance committee before we get to the point of having to vote on a budget, because I think that's going to be kind of crucial, even if because everything is in a projected mode, and making sure that apples meet oranges. My other concern is with the transportation and everything else. Are we building all of the costs along with, I guess, this bright picture of this is our ideal situation. This is what we can, minimize. It's the minimum that we can, take in order to do business. Is all of that cost being built into the fee, whereas we can maintain it through that particular program, or those dollars, if it was reallocated back to you, you'll be able to be self-sufficient.
All those costs are being factored in and will be factored in once we get to that point where we start getting a separate intergovernmental agreement with ICE. From a budgetary standpoint, the Finance Committee met last week, tentatively approved a budget to be put on review that's supposedly going to be approved on October 31st as it is, which doesn't bode well for our department. However, from the standpoint of this program, and even before we got ICE, we've said it before, unfortunately there are no guarantees. There are no guarantees that ICE can't call us tomorrow and say, you know what, we have no need for you anymore, too bad. We've gone through that. We've gone through the ups and downs. And so I don't think at this point, you know, from a budgetary standpoint, it's a risk that we're taking, that we're going to have ICE for a longer period of time, and that we will make our nut, if you will, when it comes to our number that we need.
But given the fact that Chicago was crowded and has been crowded for some time, when you gauge, looking at data or statistics, you can almost gauge that there's going to be a need for these services when you utilize words like all over the country, they are full. So it looks as if they are scavenging for additional space, and then they have a tier of expectations that needs to be followed. So as a result, because you have met them, I'm not looking for them to go away, but I also know we can err on the side of caution by saying, let's not make this permanent. So we're looking at the books, and you're excluded as far as that's concerned, then it can do nothing other than buffer if it becomes a permanent situation.
And we're making decisions, some decisions based on a comfort level that we feel with the information that we're being provided. So.
I got a follow-up on that.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sheriff, all right, so when do you think the agreement between ICE will take place where you guys find a figure? Because you say they're piggybacking off your marshal's number.
Correct.
Now, and I'm not gonna, it's a negotiation, so when do you think that negotiation will take place, or when do you think you'll be able to firm up your side of it?
Based on our conversations that we've had, there's, and this is going to get somewhat confusing, but ICE has standards that date back, they refer to as 2000 standards and 2011 standards. And what those are standards that had to be met after the year 2000, and then in 2011 they changed their standards and called them the 2011 standards. Right now we don't have an issue meeting the 2000 standards. That's a fairly simple task, although it's still a little bit convoluted, but we have, for the most part, and that's what the guy is here today, to make sure that we meet the 2000 standards. We won't renegotiate anything until we meet the 2011 standards. A couple other things that will be involved with that, but again, those are things that they talked about factoring in to the cost of that negotiation. So it probably won't happen anytime soon. I would say maybe a year, maybe shorter, but I would at least give it a year so that we can get up to those standards that they require to make this a long-term operation. So what have we talked about so far?
We talked about ICE, now we need to go to the monthly report.
Well, there's a couple other things with ICE that, you know, just potential revenue. As I said before, we're planning to take additional ICE detainees once we feel comfortable with our staff. I am certainly no numbers guy, but at 175 detainees times 80, that amounts to about $14,000 a day. Times 365 is potentially over $5 million in new revenue. Obviously, that number does not include expenses. So, as we'd like to say, we're bringing in, or we're potential to bring in over $5 million. There's obviously some cost associated with that would affect that number a little bit. Continuing on the corrections side, our medical transports are up, and those will continue to go up. One of the things that ICE really focuses on is medical. As most of you know, we are accredited by the National Commission on Correctional Health Care, the NCCHC. We just went through our reaccreditation process 2 weeks ago, and we feel that that went very well. These detainees from ICE have spent a lot of time out on the street and require some medical treatment. So obviously that's not medical treatment we'll pay for. ICE does pay for that, but we will transport them, so those transports will go up. As we have started, and I think I advised, I don't know if I advised the full county board, I get my meetings mixed up, but our deputies are actually helping with transports outside of the building. That allows us to keep our correction staff inside the building where they're supervising both the inmates and the detainees. So that's been a big help. Our bookings remain steady, and one concerning thing that is a little bit scary. So far this year, we've sent 95 inmates to Illinois Department of Corrections, and there's been over 470 that have been released back to our community. So, unfortunately, with recidivism, some of those 470 will more than likely be back in our custody. Questions on the corrections side?
Mr. Snipes.
Some time ago, we had the reentry program, but I don't think it ever took wings, at least not to where it should be. So, as a result, I believe it was something that was welcomed by the state but not funded as usual. So as a result, we just are in some impasse somewhere. But what other educational opportunities are there out there so that if these individuals in fact do come back into the community, that perhaps there's some type of job or something to kind of help them turn around, especially if they've been off the street for a minute and then coming into the world, or you have a felony and a lot of people don't want to hire you because you have that red flag.
You're correct in that the reentry program that they passed legislation for, and everybody got pretty excited about it because it was such a good idea, was never funded. So counties like ours obviously couldn't afford to take the people in. It just becomes a matter of money. And it gets back to that old question of that old car ad, you can pay me now or pay me later. So these guys are coming out of prison. If we pay to fund it and we're helping these guys and maybe prevent them from coming back, then you save the money at the end. Or you don't fund it, these guys come back, they end up in our system back in our system anyway, and we're paying for it then. So it's a catch-22. With no money up front, it's impossible for us to do anything with these guys coming back from DOC.
Mr. Enns.
Just two real quick questions this time. The old jail, how many prisoners, I know I've been told that before, but how many prisoners will that hold?
240 total, 200 comfortably.
Okay, so are we trying to keep our local prisoners there and the ICE prisoners?
Actually, Chief Kalawenzu and Chief Schultz and our classification people are working on some things to move. It's a matter of who we want to move and who we want to supervise down at that building. So they're working on that daily as far as the people that go down there.
And then one other question I don't think has ever been answered. These ICE detainees, are they male or female?
Male.
All male?
So far.
Oh, okay, thanks.
On the patrol side, our citations, we've already written more citations this year than last year. We still have 2 months left to go in the fiscal year, so that's a positive for future revenue. Unfortunately, our fatals so far this year have more than doubled, which we knew was going to be a result of lack of people on the street to slow people down. So our civil process numbers are also up. So those are positives from a revenue standpoint. You know, unfortunately, the fatals are something that, you know, we're going to need to do a better job of trying to get guys out on the street to curtail the speeding and the reckless driving. If you flip over our budget, looks like right now we're approximately 1.17% over, basically caused by the corrections overtime. That is not I mean, it's pretty simple to look at where our numbers are. With this ICE addition over the last couple months, it looks like our end of the year revenue will be close to 5.5 million. I know that the finance director and myself had two different numbers where we thought we'd be. He thought we'd be at 5 million. I thought we'd be at 5.2, and hopefully we'll be at 5.5, and at least that's a little better than 5. So not where we wanted to be, but unfortunately we didn't have choice in that. Questions?
1.07 or
1.17.
1.17.
And we still got a month and a half to bring that down a little bit too.
Other questions? I'll take a motion to put this on file by Mr. McConnell, second by Mr. Enns. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Staffing update. We talked a little bit about it. We've hired 6 correctional officers right now, with all starting, I believe, early next week. Obviously, we need to get them trained. We just can't throw them in a housing unit and say, knock yourself out. So they will go through our own FTO program internally, and then within 6 months, we are required to send them to the state of Illinois for correctional officer basic training, which is a 5-week period as well. That we do get some reimbursement back for, so that it isn't a total cost to us. We do get some reimbursement back.
Is that 5 straight weeks?
5 straight weeks. They come home on the weekends. We can
work out.
we haven't. Yeah, we would have to pay them overtime anyway. We continue to evaluate the need from our staff and the numbers that we will require to house additional detainees. So that is a continuing process. We are testing. We tested last Monday. We're testing next week. And as I told you before, we reached out to KCC and Olivet, to their criminal justice programs to look at the potential of part-times. Obviously, the advantage of those are there's benefits. It reduces our overtime, and again, it gives students a valuable opportunity to gain some experience in dealing with, you know, real live work in the criminal justice system as opposed to instruction alone at these colleges. And they are great to work with. Both Olivet and KCC have outstanding directors of their departments who have their students' best interest at heart.
I got a question first. Wait, hang on 1 second. Is there any way we could classify this like an internship instead of part-time? And I'm just looking at the grievance.
No, I don't think, like I said, I think once, you know, the issue with the grievance is that we had, you know, we never replaced our full-time people. So the issue with the grievance, I don't believe, is necessarily that they don't want part-timers. I think the issue is that they're saying you're supplanting full-timers for part-timers. So that, I think that was the basis for the grievance, and I think once we get back to full-time, I think that won't be an issue.
Mr. Enns.
Yeah, Sheriff, I don't know how young, is there an age limit what these correction officers can?
18.
Okay. Are you aware that my son works at the local career center out there, and they have, I think, a training facility there. Have you approached them? Some of those are seniors that are be getting out.
We have not actually, but that's a good point, and that strictly for that reason. Most most people graduating from high school don't turn 18 until the late stages of their senior year. So, and it's a little bit different with kids in high school because they're in school from 7 or 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. There's, I don't know that we want high school kids working on the midnight shift to then have to get back up or not go to sleep and then go to school. At the high school level, I just think it's...
No, I was just thinking for future trainees.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we utilize the Career Center a lot. And if we have a question on somebody who went through the program, we don't hesitate to call the instructors to say, hey, is this person, was he or she a good student?
You were aware that they had that program.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we get asked to go out and talk there quite
Okay.
quite a lot.
Mr. Stauffenberg.
Thank you, Chairman. Mike, how many people do you need for us to take all 200? How many people do you need to hire?
Probably another 15.
Okay.
No. We'd be, no, as high as we were up, at one point I think we were up to 128. But this would put us, another 15 plus the 6 would put us right around 110 or 112.
Is it proper to ask what the higher end fee is? What your wages?
Did Marlon leave? I don't know what the contract says. It's right around 40,000. That's base.
Okay.
Base salary is 41.
Yeah, 41. Oh, you are back there. You were hiding behind the pole.
Is that it, Jim?
Yeah.
Just one question.
Mr. Snyder.
I know we don't have the re-entry, but I just wanted to ask a question for my own. First of all, how many of our clergies are kind of coming in and maybe talking with these individuals?
We have a lot of volunteers who come in on certain, there's a schedule set up for our religious and lay religious people.
Mm-hmm.
And they come in quite a bit, and we appreciate them a lot because they do a lot to help the detainees understand why we as corrections do what we do, because sometimes they don't like what we do, and they kind of act as a buffer sometimes between our staff and the inmates to soften that a little bit. So yeah, they come in quite regularly.
Oh, okay. I was going to take re-entry and see if they could talk to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, thanks.
We went through our fee study process on Monday with Bellwether LLC, both the sheriff's side and the jail side. At this point, we really don't have anything documented as far as what potential revenue we do have, although I can tell you that the recommendations that they come back with, we will get to you as soon as we have them, with the hope that we increase those fees as soon as we can to help generate revenue for next year, which will also help on top of our citations, our civil process, the ICE detainees, and so those will be, obviously we'll need county board approval for those, but at this point I don't think that'll be a problem. Last thing, surplus vehicles. I have to find my email because I forgot the piece of paper. I have it right here. We have 204 Impalas that both have one has 124,000, one has 106,000. They are really just sitting here doing nothing. We won't use them. We won't put them in our fleet for anything. We have an 05 Ford F-150 with 163,000 miles on it. And we have a 2001 Wells Cargo. I don't know what that is. And I don't have a mileage on here, but it's something that we don't, oh, it's a trailer that we have no use for. And we also have a Article 36 vehicle, a Dodge Ram, a 1998 Dodge Ram, that we just like to declare excess, that we will ship down to Clinton and sell them at auction and give the money back to our auto maintenance line item.
Would you get a copy of that tonight?
I will.
So
I will. I apologize. I have it right here if you want my phone.
Yeah. I'll take a motion to declare that. Mr. Stauffenberg, second by Mr. Legess. Called you Mulcahy. I don't know why, but all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
The last thing I have, and it's not on the agenda, it's just it's just a thing that happened last Thursday at the Finance Committee meeting. And part of the problem, I think, between maybe the board and some departments out there is either a lack of knowing the information or just wanting to put out wrong information to maybe make somebody look bad. One of the statements that was made last week was that to start up our inmate bed rental program that we hired 100 people. And it's things like that that get the public questioning not only you, but questioning our department, other departments in the county in general. And I think I've tried to get across and try to be as transparent as we possibly can. If any of you ever have a question regarding anything we have, regarding money, staffing, costs, we are certainly willing to provide that information. You don't even have to fill out a FOIA. I mean, just call us instead of regurgitating false information for who's ever gained. It's so frustrating because when you have 128, the top number of correctional officers we've ever had was 128. Which means if we would have started this program up with 100, we would have had 28 officers for 230 inmates back in 2005, and that's just not true. And it just frustrates. It's frustrating as a department head. I've said since May, since I started sitting in this chair officially, that we will provide any information we possibly have that we can give you. Because providing that wrong information to other county board members and the public is a disservice to everybody. So,
Agreed.
That's all I got.
Mr. Legess.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment on the budget that we approved at Finance, and that's going to be up on October 31st. We fully understand, what's happening as far as when we took a look at the budget. I mean, we can't really budget on ifs, so we're going to adopt the budget we have, but it's fully understood that there's things going on, such as the fee study at the sheriff's office and the courts, and there's a fee study going on with the recorder and the clerk, and of course the ICE program. So I mean, it's fully understood that once we get a grasp on where we're at and where we're going, that's probably going to be amended.
Sure.
I mean, Mike knows, Mike knows that, and we discussed it.
And we're working towards that, and we're working
Absolutely.
with you guys to get there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we talked about the communication lines. After the new board is sworn in, we have a whole new board. Then the communication lines have to be a lot better. And I've suggested that we even have just with the board chairman and the finance and whoever. A monthly meeting so everybody knows what's going on. I mean, like Mike said, it doesn't do anybody any good to have false information out there because there's enough people that can create their own false, without us helping them.
Right.
So, but that budget, will be, severely looked at, and I'm sure it's going to change.
Mr. Stauffenberg.
Mike, there's two things I'd like to see us still do. I come from the ag community, as Janice does, and maybe Mr. Enns too some. But I'm used to spending money to make money. Coming from an ag community, you put out millions of dollars and hope you can get it back. I'd like to see you explore expanding our jail, get some numbers, see what it's going to take. Because I personally believe the ICE program is going to be around a while. The people I know and talk to think it's going to stick around. So
we do too, and we have, without saying that we've suggested that to them, that was part of when we talk about negotiating. That is something that we can certainly negotiate with them to see if maybe ICE can assist us with some of that funding.
right.
That would finish that third phase.
And secondly, I think the public would like to see this too, as well as myself. I'd like to see us continue to utilize the old jail. We're not going to close it or tear it down or do something with it. Let's put some people back in there.
Well, and the reason we didn't have anybody in there in the first place, because we didn't have good bodies.
I understand.
So, and it helped with staffing. So, yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, that we need that building to, continue to bring in some revenue. Obviously the goal from our end is if ICE is what it takes to get this county back to level playing, where we're at zero instead of having a deficit, then everybody's better off.
It's the best news we've had in months, maybe a year or two.
Mr. Seroy first.
Thanks, sir. You talked about earlier about your testing for your correctional officers. Is that the first, is that like the interview portion, the application portion? Or
No.
do you already have a slew of guys that you're ready to hire?
No, the process is, we obviously screen the applicants. We bring them into test. It's a written test. While they're here, we fingerprint them so that we're able to get their criminal background that day, so we know, so then we can eliminate some if we have to. We do interview them, we polygraph them, we do a background on them, check with their prior employers, that type of thing, and then we make an offer of employment, and then they have to go to Riverside somewhere and take a drug test.
Okay, so but you do have a pool of guys
Oh,
that
yeah.
you ready to go. Okay,
Yes.
That's what my
Yes.
question. Thank you, sir.
Snipe.
Two things. I think when Tim was here, I made mention that I was checking on ICE, and he said at that time the talks were still going, but it was like, kind of just not fewless, but just a little bit above bar. And now that is materialized, and now that that's not going to be considered into the budget processing or whatever, and that budget can be amended, I'm thinking that there's a way to work out. As I sit on a whole many hats. One is the union president when, you're dealing with the union side of it, and then when you're looking at management side and saying, how do we, maintain, but, at least get a budget we can live with. But I will say this in the capacity of being a chaplain, and that is we need to pray that the ice don't melt.
Wow. I'm here all night. Well, again, this isn't something that is going to get us back to zero right away. It's going to be a process, and we're willing to put in the work. I'm glad you mentioned Sheriff Bukowski's name. And I'll just share this. When I got the call, when I was in Orlando, Florida, and got the call from the director, Tim was the first person I called because he put his heart and soul in trying to get ICE down here. And his voice, said it all. He was so happy that this finally came to fruition. I think he had to pick himself up off the floor when I told him, but he was so happy for everybody. He wanted to give all the credit to us, and certainly that's not where it belongs. I mean, it belongs to everybody. Everybody had a hand in this. And again, we say this now and talk about it like it's going to last for 20 years, and hopefully it doesn't end tomorrow. So if it does, then we'll be back to square one, and we'll be, looking at other options and trying to do things. But Sheriff Bukowski had his hand in this from dating back to prior to 2010, and was a big part of all that we've done. So he certainly deserves a lot of the credit as well. So,
Mr. Sheriff, that's exactly what the public doesn't understand. They don't know that, and we haven't probably communicated as well as we should have as a board, that this has been going on for more than a week.
right.
So,
Right.
all this work has come to fruition, and
Long time.
we need to give you all the help we can.
I actually pulled out 2 cards that I've had here in my folder for quite a while, and I was looking for a date on them because I normally date them when we meet. Those 2 names are familiar?
Oh yeah, this was 2014.
Yeah, I thought.
Yeah.
That's when I met with him the first time.
Yeah, but it was back prior to 2010 when we submitted our first proposal, so.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
Any other questions
all I
or
got.
comments for the sheriff?
Thank you all.
Any other business to come before the committee? Any old business? New business, Friday night, there is going to be a drug court auction at the KC Hall. Drug court fundraiser auction. If anybody is interested, I know Tom Latham has tickets for sale. I think, oh, Randy has some right in the back there, or any of the board members have them. But that's a program that we need to keep going. Otherwise, we're going to have more juveniles in our system. So.